All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are live. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. Looks like we're live on both platforms. Hope everybody is doing good in the new year. Happy New Year to all of you guys. And this is obviously the first stream of the new year, and with that, we have some updates, which is good. So we'll get into that here in just a second. Smudge, thank you for the conversion of Prime sub to Tier 1 sub. I don't think I've ever seen that before, that message, but thank you very much. Appreciate that. Haven't seen you since last year, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. All right, so before we get started, I do want to take a quick second and just thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Lazaron. That is the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. And next underneath of that is our partners for KantoCon and Gerboys Inc., as well as Matt Osgard. And then underneath that is the rest of our supporters who are a combination of other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It's greatly appreciated, and helps me offset the cost of hosting fees, software licenses, things like that, costs associated with running the project. And of course, this project wouldn't be anything at all if it weren't or if it were without you viewers here, whether you're on the Twitch side, the YouTube side, or you're catching the VOD after the fact. Without you guys, obviously, this wouldn't exist. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys. All right. Galactic Pass, good to see you over there on the YouTube side. Okay, so where we left off last time is sort of closing the loop, more or less, on the refactor. And we're going to continue with that tonight, but I've done some work off stream, and I have a little bit of a visual update for you guys. So last time we were kind of, whoops, hold on. I might need to rebuild. Okay. Let's see. Did I break anything in the process? No. Okay. All right. So, last time we were trying to sort of get the scene rendering here. What is going on here? Is OBS actually making this fail now? Oh, you know what? It might be. Sometimes my GPU does not like if I have RenderDoc open, and I try to actually debug it. So let me try closing that. I'm not sure if that's I think it's a Linux specific issue. But sometimes this just does not like me having this open. You guys can kind of see a little bit of a preview there of what we're going to talk about. All right, there we go. All right. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So we have a little bit in the way of a visual update. Obviously, our frame rate is terrible right now because we're still not actually processing things correctly. But we do have our static meshes rendering once again, which is awesome news. We can see that we have some random things, like here some artifacts from the shadow mapping not working correctly, and things of that nature. But you know, we're much further along than we were before. So we've got the skybox rendering, we have the water plane rendering, albeit not correctly, and then we also have our static meshes showing up. So we do have a couple of things here to resolve in terms of transparency. Some of these things we just have to set manually. And then I think from that point we're going to be much better off once we solve some of these bugs. So essentially, what we need to do is just work our way through the remaining issues that we have in our court. So, Happy New Year to you as well, Galactic Past. Appreciate that. I hope you're doing well. Hope the new year is going well for you so far. We're not all that far in, obviously, but hopefully things are working out okay. All right. So one thing that we actually need to do is so in our import process for our static meshes, one of the things that we cannot do, and I actually have here a note. Transparency for kohi materials is determined by the base color transparency and must be enabled manually after import if that is wanted. So when we are processing the obj MTL file, we don't really have a way to examine the texture at that time to determine if we actually want transparency. And I have a couple of ideas on maybe how we could solve that, but for right now, we just have to sort of update that manually. So if we take a look at, let's have a look at our assets and materials. And I think the one we're actually going to want was, shoot, what was it called? I can't actually think of what it was called now. I think it might have been this polysurface SG1. Yes. So I had actually re-imported this off camera. All of these materials definitions have been updated off camera. And so I just need to manually flip this to true because I re-imported these and it flipped that to false. So if I go ahead and save that and then go ahead and run again, and load up the scene, which I have no idea now that I've started recording why that's taking so long. It was really snappy off camera, of course. But we can see here that we have indeed transparency back. So that is definitely a good thing as well. We know that portion of our material is working as it should be. So the next thing I think we need to figure out is some of these artifacts having to do with shadow maps. And so I figure we'll tackle those first. And apparently my debugger is just like struggling, so I'm actually going to relaunch this. See if that helps. Okay, so we've got that. One thing that I did want to take a look at, though, is this transparency issue really quickly. Let me see. Where is it? I think I had... Here we go. So I just want to take a look at this page because I believe we actually had on here a reference for texture maps. Here we go. So here we go. So alpha texture map. So what I can do is we have this map underscore D, which we're not currently interpreting. And my thought is if we add that map underscore D as we're importing, and we actually have something that's assigned to that, then we can go ahead and say, well, let's go ahead and treat our material as if it has transparency. And I think that might be a good way to go ahead and determine this. So rather than looking at the importer, I think what I'm going to have to do is probably look at, well, there's two things I can look at. Let's see, we should probably start with the source material first. So that's going to be this, so the MTL asset. In here, one thing that we don't have yet was we actually have something in here for ambient and diffuse asset names. And I think what we'll do is we also have this D property, which is also transparency. And so I'm going to say it like if we find either one of these, then we're going to say transparency is true, right? So what I'll do is I'll do F32, and then we'll say diffuse transparency, right? And then kname diffuse diffuse transparency image asset name. Okay, and then the two of these, when we go into serialize, deserialize rather, we will need to look. Let's see, where are we doing our maps? Here we go. We'll just basically need to add another entry in here, right? So I guess we can do paste them there just for a second. And we can say else if, in fact, I'm actually just going to copy this. And we're going to say, what was that? Map D. And that's going to be a 5. And then we're going to say diffuse transparency image asset name, right? And so we're going to save that off. So that takes care of that. And then we also have just the sort of D line that can exist here, which looks like that. And I believe it's also, so some implementations use D and others use TR, which is inverted. So TR is 1 minus D. So let's see. So 1.0 for this means fully opaque, as does a value. Okay, so this is transparency versus dissolved, I guess, is what the idea is there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to basically cram both of these properties. We're going to interpret both of them, but we're only going to save them to a single place within our asset. So we're just going to save it to diffuse transparency, right? So we need a closing bracket there. And then that's actually going to be, we're going to have to examine the first character of the line. I don't think we have anything that starts with T or D. No. So that's going to be a new case. So we'll go here. And actually, we didn't break this, which would be a bug. And then we'll do case T, and that's going to be handled a little bit differently than case D, right? So those are going to be handled slightly differently, but the outcome is going to wind up being the same. So break and break. So we'll handle the D first because that's going to be directly what we're going to use. So we're just going to say that we need to do essentially a scanf, right? So let's see, I think we have, let's see, don't we have in here? Yeah, we could just copy this. Yeah, we can copy this, that's fine. Okay, so we can come down here, and I'm just going to put this in here, and we're going to say, we're going to save off the first string into just that rubbish buffer, and then we only need to process one floating point after that. So our property is going to be an F32, and that's going to point to current material, diffuse transparency, right? And so that's just going to point straight to prop, and then we can get rid of all these other ones. And that's actually already a pointer, so we're good. In fact, I could just do this. take the address of that instead. Okay. So that one we're going to use as is. And then I guess the value of it doesn't matter as much, but we might want it at some point. That's the only reason I'm extracting it. So the other thing that we're going to do is, in this case, we need to actually slightly modify it. So we are going to say d is equal to 0, right? And we're just going to extract this to d. And then after that, we are going to say current material dot diffuse transparency is equal to, what did we say that was going to be? TR is 1 minus D. So if we need to invert that essentially. Right? So am I missing that? 1 minus D. Yeah, I think that's correct. I might have that backwards, but that's essentially what we need to do. Okay, so transparency equals 1.0 minus D. Oops. And then this is just diffused transparency. Use as is. All right. So let's see. I think as long as we have, if we have diffuse transparency as non-zero, or wait a minute, no. If diffuse transparency is not 1, then we have transparency. All right, let me catch up on some chats here. Singy, good to see you. Firm Lake, good to see you as well. And I appreciate the well wishes. Happy New Year's, everybody. I have a question regarding the error reporting. How do you decide on whether to use kinfo or kdebug for logging? So kdebug and ktrace are only provided in debug builds. In release builds, those don't actually output. They're just a no-op. So it really depends on whether I only want that stuff to output for debug builds or not. And so kinfo is always output. Kdebug and ktrace are not always output. What are you refactoring currently? So nothing actually. I'm bug exterminating bugs, I guess you could say. So at the moment, I'm getting rid of a import issue having to do with transparency when we're importing OBJs. And then I'm basically just working through the visual bugs and the other bugs that come up from the refactor. So that's more or less what we're doing at the moment. Let's see. I'm good. Thank you for asking. How should game code tell the renderer what to render? Most of that's in the scene. Yeah, so it's usually not game code doing that. It's what we're doing in the scene. Other than that, we can create a new pass in the render graph to provide the renderer with things, or we can make renderer calls directly. So there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. I'm going to try and use the render graph for the game that we're going to be making. Should the renderer have a pointer to the array of game objects? Absolutely not. No. The renderer should only be ever provided with the minimum amount of data that it needs to actually render something. So it's going to be like vertex and index data, buffer offsets, things like that, texture handles, stuff like that, right? We don't ever want to provide the renderer more than it needs to actually do its work. We want to keep that interface as separate and clean as possible from the rest of the game code. Okay. So the importer, OBJ importer rather, we had we had a note in here for transparency, right? So we're just always, at least currently, we're always saying this is false. So now that's not true. Now we can look at the material source, and we could say if we have if we have an image asset name, right, or msource diffuse transparency is not equal to 1.0f, right? So if we have a transparency asset name, an image asset name, or the transparency is not equal to 1.0f, meaning opaque, then we will go ahead and say that it has transparency. So this note can go away. And we can say transparency if there is a transparency map, which is usually the same as the ambient diffuse map, or the material is non-opaque, i.e., I guess we should say less than 0, right? Or less than 1.0. Than 1.0. Then it should be marked as transparent. Okay. So that should fix the import process for that. So what I'm going to do actually is flip over to our debugger just for a second, and I'm going to go down to our assets. And let's see, this is materials. We have models in here. And obviously we have our source models here, right? Where that's where all that's defined. And if we take a look at our tree material, we have a couple things in here. So we have a, this is the diffuse map, and then this is the specular map, right? Which we're not technically currently using, but we have it in there anyways, if we wanted to support like non-PBR materials. So the polysurface 1SG1 is the leaves. I just happen to know that off the top of my head because I've been dealing with this mesh for so long. So what we're going to do is I am actually going to take this line here, and we're going to jam in just a map D, right? And it's going to be the same map, right? So that's going to be our sort of transparency or alpha map, if you will. And that should be enough to re-import the material correctly. So the other thing I'm going to do is come in here to this one, right? Which is currently correct only because I hard-coded it to be so. So I'm going to delete this guy. And I'm going to delete the tree KSM. That's the binary static mesh. I'm going to delete that as well. And we're going to rerun the engine and re-import it and see if it works correctly. And if it does, this bug should be fixed going forward. So let it do its thing. Okay. So we'll go ahead and load. Oops. Clicked off of that really quickly. Okay. And so we've regenerated that file. And so just by the fact that we can see that the tree there is transparent means that we did the thing correctly. Obviously, there are some issues in terms of sorting with that, right? But at least we know that that's correct, right? So now we're just going to have to, continue fixing the other bugs, as it were. So we know that's good. Let's see. So for example, if there is no render graph, the game code can do this in a game loop, render object for each object. You would essentially have to build up what we call geometry render data, which is a structure that the here, I'll pull this up. So in the forward render graph node, we use these geometry render data structures. And these contain a few different pieces of data that are going to be needed. So they contain the model matrix that we're going to use to render that. They contain potentially a material instance, draw ID, unique ID, whether or not the winding of the mesh is inverted. That's if we have like a negative scale. Diffuse color, that's kind of an override. That may be going away. But the most important bit is vertex count, vertex element size, and vertex buffer offset. And then we have the same for the index buffer. And then this IBL probe index is something that the material system needs. So the most important bit is this, right? So we would extract this information from our individual meshes in the scene, or whether you just have them in your game code, whatever. And we would pass essentially this data over to the renderer in order to actually draw something. And then it's, if you're using a custom shader or something like that, you would have to make sure that you bind your shaders, update the uniforms as necessary, apply them, all that stuff. So our render pass is sort of, or our render graph rather, is doing a lot of that for us, so that we don't have to do that. But the API still exists for us to do it the hard way if we want to. At some point, I'm going to write up documentation on how to do all this with samples and stuff like that. Is the current main branch for Kohi broken? I can't seem to compile it. I don't think it's broken. It shouldn't be. My answer, or I guess my answer to that would be with more questions, right? So, what platform are you building on? What compiler are you using? What are your build errors, etc. Last I knew, though, it wasn't broken. And it's been a while since I pushed to it, so I don't think it is. Smudge and missed opportunity to say nice to see you. Nice. That's very funny. Let's see. Otito Algos, how's it going? Learning C, nice to watch you. Good to see you as well. Weird Trash Can, how's it going? It's been a bit. I hope you're doing well. It's been a bit, but I'm glad to see you here. Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. I love the dumpster fire use there. That's definitely my favorite emote out of all of them. It's the animated dumpster fire. You could post the build error there. I generally don't troubleshoot on stream, but if you post it on the Discord server, I can have a look later. Okay, where were we? Okay, so the fact that this guy was regenerated and now has transparency equal to true tells us that that fix worked. Okay, so what's next? I guess we have a bunch to pick from, right? So if we take a look at just this sort of visually, right? Now, obviously, I know the terrains are failing to load. I purposely have some of that logic disabled because we don't have blended materials yet. And I don't think I'm going to get to that as part of this refactor. I think I'm going to punt that to the next version so that we can kind of move on. Let's see, does the modes switch. So the mode switching does not work. Okay. So that's something we need to get a hold of. So the other thing is we can see that our reflection and refraction planes are actually working, just not 100% correctly. So what I mean by that is we have the water plane is actually being drawn, right? We can see that here. We can also see that stuff below that plane is being drawn because we can see, oh, that's interesting. That must be our debug. I wonder if that's what's causing all the problems. That's our debug geometry. I'll bet that's just completely wrong. Yep, it is, for sure. So our debug geometry is like our shapes to draw our gizmo and stuff like that. So that's definitely wrong. We need to fix that. But what I was saying here is we can definitely see that the refraction plane is working because we can actually see what's below, and we can see that this is fading off, which is part of the refraction texture rendering. And we can see a reflection of the sky, which is part of the reflection texture rendering. So we know that those resources are at least hooked up correctly. The shadow maps are foobar. It looks like it's tiling that for some reason, and it looks like it's probably just using the wrong index. One thing I did notice is if we come in a little bit closer, we can actually see the shadows here on the water plane. And so that tells me that probably just our cascade data is off on that. And funny enough, it's correct on the water plane, but it's not correct on the static meshes. So we have some work to do around that stuff. So let's go ahead and kill this. Pet on stream. Okay. I actually have my kitty in here. So let me go get her. Okay. So this, let me change cameras here so you guys can see. This is my older kitty, Pumpkin. She's not too happy with me right now because I just woke her up. But she's a 14-year-old Japanese bobtail. Let's see if I can get her to look at the camera. There we go. There we go. I'm going to have to let her go in a minute because she doesn't want to... I don't think she wants to be held. Oh, she's okay with scratchies, though. So yeah, this is her. Thank you for the redeem. I'm going to let her go, though. She wants to go. Okay. Just because you haven't been online for a while? Yeah, she's adorable. She's definitely my little kitten. 100%. She's starting to show her age, unfortunately. I don't like it, but... Oh, now she's super mad at me, though, because I woke her up. Alright. Okay. Yeah, Galactic Post, that's a runtime error, not a compiler error, for sure. So that massive offset looks like, and I could be wrong on this, it looks like max U64, like a unsigned U64. Let me see. I could be wrong. Let's see. I was close. It's technically this number. But yeah, I don't know why it's giving you a massive offset there either. That's very strange. Chill Crunch, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. All right. All right, where were we? I guess let's take a look at the shadow map issue, right? Because maybe there's something in there that we can resolve. So if we take a look at, I guess the first thing we're going to want to do is look at. I wonder if we should probably render dock this. I'm thinking actually. Let's do that. Launch. Let's grab a capture and close this. It takes a minute because this technically crashes when I close the window. That's something we have to address as well. Okay. So the other thing, we have some weirdness about the way that RenderDoc captures stuff. I'm not 100% sure what the deal is here, but I'm going to look at the shadow map here. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to just take a look at the outputs here and just make sure that these are being generated as we expect. So it looks like at least the first pass is generating correctly. Right, because I think that's that wooden structure that we have off to the side. I don't think we're going to be able to see too much more of that. So let's look at the second pass. All right. So there it is, a little bit more zoomed out, right? So we can see where the directional light is coming from there. And this is all the Sponza objects being drawn, so I think that one is fine. Let's check the third one. So this is the next row out. Why does this not... It's interesting that the preview here is completely different than what it's saying is the current bound image. That can't be a coincidence. Let's expand this one. Is this preview just completely foobar? Because like this preview over here looks fine, but this one is just not correct. This is saying VK image 1, which would be the shadow map layer 1. VK image 1. Image 1. Oh, you know what? I probably need to... Is it changing slices correctly? Maybe it's not. Okay, yeah, changed to slice 0 there. Maybe I just need to do that manually. Slice 1. This should be slice 2. There we go. I don't know why it was not doing it before. Okay, so that looks correct. And let's check out the last one. Yeah, and that's the fully zoomed out one. So it's being rendered to correctly. So I guess my question is, I want to look at, and this was another thing I added, by the way, I split the forward pass up to make this a little bit more obvious what's what. I want to look at the standard pass. And down here somewhere should be the water plane. And when we draw that, let's check out the inputs. So we have the shadow map, which is being bound to shadow texture. Then we also have the irradiance texture, which looks correct. Then we have the reflection color and refraction color. So refraction color looks correct minus the skybox, but the skybox is not present on this one, so we're going to have to fix that. Material textures 2. Wait, material textures. Wait a minute. What? That doesn't seem right. Because we don't call that material textures in that particular... I think I might have found the problem. So the binding image, or the binding name for these is just wrong. Unless I've somehow managed to... Yeah, I think there's something is not right with the bindings in this. Okay, so we have material samplers and material textures, which is an array here. I think we might have something afoot in our material system. I'm going to have to skip way past that. Let me see. I guess I'll need to do... let's see. That's all going to be... So if I look at this, radiance textures, shadow sampler. Okay, so these are all set 0, and the set 1 are the ones that seem to be messed up. Okay, so that's going to be the group level stuff. Group. Actually, I think what I want is apply. Right, and then we have material standard and then material water. So this is probably where we're going wrong, is somewhere in here. So material water group uniform data. That's correct. Material textures. Oh, did we literally call it material textures? Did we really? That seems wrong. Maybe it's not, though. Let me take a look at the material water. Oh, we did name it that here. Let me make sure that the... Oops. I do want to just take a quick look and see... when we create the... Material creates, it's not going to be in here. Destroy is not going to have it either. Let's see, defaults. Material water shader is what I want. Get from source. Okay, so this is where we are. All right, so we do have material textures. Array size is 5. I guess we did call it that. Okay. So I guess this is set up correctly. Let me just make sure that we're using the right structs in here. It looks like we are, though. Okay, so all of that looks correct. So I'm guessing maybe this is just a... Let me double check the shader. So we use reflection, refraction, refraction depth, then DU, DV, and normal. Do we have... Oh, we need this one. So reflection, refraction, depth, DU, DV, and normal. Okay, those actually are correct. Okay. So that's not the issue. Let me double check and make sure that this is actually loaded correctly in terms of how... Oh, this might be wrong. Let me see. So when we look at our shadow texture, that is a texture 2D array. Okay, that is correct. So we do shadow texture, irradiance textures, and then we have an array of those, which I think is 4. Yes. Okay. So that is correct, and then we should index into this shadow texture by texture size here, projected. None of that's changed. So maybe it's just the splits that are wrong. Okay, so I guess the next thing I want to check is why this isn't showing up for the materials at all. Because it definitely should be. So let me look at... let me look at this. And we have shadow texture is texture 2D array. And then we also have radiance textures, which is also that same thing. Shadow sampler and irradiance sampler. You could just use the same sampler for all of those things. So that should be fine. It's probably going to be something stupid, if I had to guess. Almost always is. Okay, so let's take a look at... Let me take a look at just a normal draw here. I guess I'll look at, I don't know. This one, right? Because all of this stuff in here should be shaded, and it's not. So if we take a look at inputs here, shadow textures here, slice 3. Okay, I mean, those slices look correct. So my question would be, oh, interesting. Not all of the material textures are bound. That's a problem. They should at least be bound with the default texture. So for this, we have base color, normal, metallic, roughness, AO, MRA, and emissive. And then based on flags, we determine whether or not we actually sample that. But they should be bound. And it doesn't look like they are, at least from what I'm seeing here. Nope. So that's probably part of the issue. So why would those not be bound? We only have, what was it? Base color and normal are bound. Metallic is not bound. Roughness is. AO is not. MRA is not, and emissive is not. I wonder if that is kind of screwing with things. Taman, good to see you. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year. MDS, Happy New Year to you as well. The ultimate exit, yeah. Does this C code conform to C14? I think technically right now I'm using C17, only because I want the bug fixes for C11. So, yeah, it's C17, but I'm only using like 2 things that actually require C17. Otherwise, it actually kind of conforms. It conforms to, I think there's 2, maybe 3 things I'm using that aren't C99, and the rest of it's C99. And at some point, I'm going to remove those things. So, nice 3 stream streak there. Nice. All right. So let me take a look at this. So this is the car, right? And this isn't even binding all the textures. So this should really be binding. I wonder if this only shows what's actually sampled, though, as opposed to everything that's actually bound. Is there a... Let me look at... default material. Those are just that. Because we should be binding like the default checkerboard material in here, even if it doesn't get used. And this is just making me think that maybe that could be part of the problem. Also, this down here is just wrong. So it's saying it's needed 736 bytes, 704 were provided. This needs 656 bytes, and 704 were provided. That doesn't seem like a coincidence that both of those are 704. Let's see. Let's take a look at this a little bit. So these are all the light space transforms for our directional light. Those look correct. Projection looks correct. Views. So this is just one view matrix. I want to go up here actually and see for the, I guess let's look at the reflection pass. And we'll look at the first draw in here. So we're only loading up one view. I wonder if that's messing with it too. It doesn't have the inverse view, which is problematic. That might be part of the problem. So we're missing that. Okay, what else? We have 2 view positions, but we don't have 2 view matrices. Why is that? Let's look. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Let's see. So we have material max views. This should be 4. Yep. Okay. So view positions, we have views, we have frame data views. Did we not? There's two spaces in here where we do this. I wonder if we're not doing that correctly in here somewhere. So this is in render scene. So we're building up all of this, view positions, view, here we go. Okay, so this is where the views are loaded in to that frame data to be copied over later. What about the other one? Okay. That may be something. So when we're rendering the water plane, we only actually use one view matrix. That seems like it might be not correct, because we should always have both of those, I think. Technically, the water plane doesn't need it, so I think it's getting away from it, but I am wondering if somehow these shaders are just getting mixed up. So let's see. Bind pipeline. Material standard is being used for that one. Wait a minute. And then we're doing, why are we binding the water shader here as well? What? Why is this? We're setting all of this topology stuff, and then we're also switching back to, wait a minute. I think I found the problem. So we're binding the material shader. We're binding the descriptor sets, and then we're binding the water shader, and then we're binding the descriptor sets, and then we're binding the material standard shader again. And we're doing all of that before draw index, but why is this water shader one in here? Okay. So this is within the forward reflection pass in this case. I wonder if we're doing that in the refraction pass as well. So that's actually going to be on the first draw call. We are doing it here. Okay, what about the standard pass? Same thing. Okay, I think I found a source of some of the problems we're having. Now the question is where is that coming from? Okay, so let's see if we can't figure that out. Let's see, I guess I can search for use, right? Shader system use is probably the one we're going to want to use. So we only have one of those in here. So I actually wonder if this is actually a material system problem. It might be. Okay, so when we do a frame prepare, we do that once for the entire frame. So we kind of hit all the materials at once, right? Or all the material types at once. So once for standard, once for water, once for blended eventually when we get there. So that bit makes sense. Let me just look at the forward. right? So we have this called in two places. One for render water planes and one for render scene. That's not correct. That should really only be called once. It's entirely possible that's part of the problem. Okay, so, because I'll bet this is what's clobbering it. This right here. I think. And this is within water planes, so I think if I do this, what's the problem? I'm going to guess unused variables. So we're probably not going to need this. We're probably not going to need that. Might not need a couple more of them too. Yeah, we don't need these two. Oh, don't need this one also. Okay. So if we do this now. No, something's not right. We keep hitting this every once in a while too. And it only seems to happen every once in a while, so I'm gonna have to figure that out too. Or is that now happening every time because we fixed the other thing? Let's see. Pipeline barrier. Memory should be bound by calling VK bind to image memory. Shadow map VK image 2. We wouldn't have bound that yet because we're not using it. Clear depth stencil image. Okay. Where is that being called from? Because that technically should not be happening. Render graph execute. Okay, so we're executing the shadow render graph. Okay. So how do I... Why would that not be... Why would that not be bound yet? It should be. Depth texture. It's loaded. That's bizarre. Oh, you know what? It could be this. There might have been fallout that happened further up. I don't know. Let's try running it again. Yep. Render doc strikes again. Okay, so load. Hey, that looks better already. Okay, so our reflection actually works now, which is cool. We can actually see that. We can see that working. So we fixed that. It looks like it might have fixed a couple of other issues too. Our shadow maps still look kind of foobar, but at least our reflection looks correct. Okay, so why now? It doesn't look like our mode stuff still doesn't work. Our shadow map works for the water plane, but not anywhere else. Okay. So I guess we need to get a new capture. Let's see. Just thinking this for my engine. How do you store assets? I'm a big fan of keeping assets as plain text as much as possible. It depends on the asset. So we actually have a few different formats for various things. I do a lot of plain text stuff for sure. So like our materials are in our custom language, right? So it's plain text, but it's our custom language. And then, but things like our static meshes are not, right? So those are binary. Our textures are binary, and that's because we could just pick that binary blob of data up and jam it into a texture or process it as is. So it makes loading stuff very quick. So yeah, it depends on what it is. A lot of our configuration-based stuff is using our custom format, and it works pretty well so far. Shouldn't the unused view matrices be the identity matrix instead of zero matrix? Because if you do any zero matrix operation with those defaults, it definitely breaks stuff. True, but I also have sort of a built-in count that I loop up to. And so I won't ever actually loop into those unused matrices, at least for now. My plan eventually is to put all of those things into a storage buffer and then index into that, but we don't have that yet. So, Spiro, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. Starting off with order of operations issues, nice. Yeah, yeah, it's been interesting, right? But we are closing the loop on the refactor, which is good. Almost as bad as off by one. Yeah, I get that too. I've had several of those on stream. That was as much as possible part. Wouldn't store actual mesh or texture data as text. Yeah, I mean, people probably do it, but why? Lazy man, good to see you. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. All right. Let me see. From Lake, you retracted a bunch of messages. Let's see. Changed my Linux Windows setup. Project is on Windows, and I mount the folder on Linux, so I can make a Win compile with it, or with a SSH connection, make a Linux compile without copying files. Nice. This stuff is so overwhelming at first. Sheesh. Yeah, it can be at times, but you eventually get into the mindset, and you basically just form that tribal knowledge up here, and it eventually just all makes sense. Posted the error log and the GDB backtrace in the Discord. Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at that after the fact and see if I can't figure out what's going on with that. Why not use something like GLTF for assets? We're going to. We just haven't gotten there yet. But that is in the cards. We actually have that in our to-do list to support that. So we're going... The idea is we're going simplest first, and then more complex as we go. So, you know, we have OBJ and MTL files for our imported assets, right? But then we have our own custom formats that those things get translated to. And so when we have GLTFs, we'll translate to those same formats. Let's see. I see you right in C. I see what you did there. There's a good library to work with it, CGLTF. So one thing that we're doing here, in this project at least, is because this is an educational exercise, we're actually diving into a lot of these things sort of manually, right? And handling them ourselves without libraries. And that's just because we want to limit our dependencies as much as possible on outside libraries. But also, it is a learning exercise, right? So when we do GLTF, we're probably going to tackle that. I say probably because I'll have to look into how much work that's actually going to be to write a GLTF parser. But we're probably going to write our own parser for that, just because we can. Let's see. All right. Where were we? I think we were looking at the... So why would our... Oh, right. We were gonna capture a new frame. That's what we were gonna do. All right. So let's go ahead and grab a capture. And wait for it to do its thing. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Okay. So our skybox is still not showing up, which is sus. It's very strange that it shows up in the actual application, but not in the render.capture. So I don't know what's going on there yet, but let's dive into... you know what? Let's look at the normal one. Let's actually do that instead of reflection pass. I want to see... why we are not getting... So our shadow texture is bound. So why are we not getting cast shadows on this guy, right? Like they should be everywhere, and they're just not. All right, let's see. So, oh, you know what? I should probably look at the data that's bound first, I suppose. That might help. Okay, so I still think this has something to do with it, but we'll see. So now we have our view matrices as we expect. Oh, interesting. This got duped. I'm not sure why that happened. Okay. Not sure what's going on there. Also, our last cascade split is 0. I think that's foobarring things for sure. So we're going to have to look at that. But also our shadow bias. Why is our shadow bias and render... Like, all this stuff is 0. That's not right. Okay. And this, to me, is suspicious, because I don't think we're ever actually setting that in code. So I have a feeling... These all look relatively correct. These are the different light space transformations for the directional lights, for each cascade. Why is that getting set twice? Okay, so we redo the prepare frame. This is where we set that. And we're only setting the first 2 of them. Everything else should be zeroed out. Oh, I see what we're doing wrong, I think. Yeah, because I'm a dingus. That's why. You're copying way too much memory over. Okay. That's an issue. All right, so that means that we're probably doing that somewhere else, I would imagine. Okay, that would have been the only other one, which is commented out now. I think we're going to wind up eliminating this, but I think, and then this is also dead as well. Okay, maybe that's part of the problem. Let's take a look at that. So I'm actually just going to launch in here because I'm going to want to take a new capture. Thank you for the follow and welcome. I don't think it's correct still. Unless our cascades are wrong still, but I don't think... Yeah, that's still wrong. And also our render mode still isn't working. We should be able to toggle back and forth like the different modes of rendering, like viewing normals, viewing lighting only, stuff like that. That's still not working. So I guess let me move this back over here. And I'll take a shot of this anyways. What software is that? This is RenderDoc. Nico Man, first time chat, welcome. See a lot of progress from the rectangle text I saw last time? Yeah, we have made a lot of progress, for sure. We're getting really close. Third view position is not duped. Y component is negative. Oh, was it? Did I not? Wait, where's the... Did it not load it? Where did the capture go? Okay. Save this capture. It is loaded. I guess let me do this. This one. There we go. Okay. You're saying the third one is not... Oh, you're right. Y is negative. So we should only have 2 of these. There should be 1 view position for the actual camera position, and then 1 position for the inverted camera position is what these should be. That's what our views are, right? So why then... Oh, wait a minute, and these are the same data. These aren't right either. These are duplicates. Something's still not right in here, for sure. Let me look at cascade splits. That's still way, way wrong. I have a feeling I'm probably like trampling memory somewhere or something stupid like that. Kuju with a raid of 19 viewers. How's it going? Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, raiders. We are deep in the trenches of debugging stupid issues. But welcome. Definitely, if you guys are not following out Kuju, definitely do it. He's making an amazing looking game called Fat Goblins. And he's writing it in Jai, which is really cool also. So if you're not following Kuju, definitely go do it. Yeah, so welcome, raiders. We are in the process of closing the loop on a fairly large refactor in our engine, and we're dealing with well, as you can see, if render doc is open, we're dealing with stupid like data, I think alignment issues and stuff just not being correct after the refactor. So what we're basically looking at is we have let me collapse this a little bit. So we have this, which is actually not completely accurate also to what the application shows, which is really weird. So we're missing, we're actually missing our skybox out of here for some reason. For some reason, it renders in the application, not in render doc. I have no idea why. Also, our UI is missing at render doc. So I have no idea what's going on with that. But we're basically eliminating the issues with this one by one. So essentially what we've done is, I suppose I should probably back up for a second and give you guys the intro as to what the heck we're doing here in general. So what we are working on is we're building a game engine from scratch in C. And it's called the Kohi Game Engine, and we're doing it as sort of a educational type of thing. It's kind of the resource that I wish that I had when I was learning how to do this stuff. And it started out as a tutorial series on YouTube, and we changed formats a few times, and we ultimately landed on the live stream format. So the advantage here is, long and short of it, is that you guys can see everything that goes into making a game engine from scratch, including all of the head banging against the desk and debugging stupid stuff like we're doing now. And so the engine itself is completely open source and free. It is Apache 2.0 license, which means that you can use it for personal or commercial use, whatever you would prefer. It does not matter. All that I ask is that you say that you use it if you do. It is also never going to have any sort of licensing or royalty fees of any kind ever. It's always going to be free because I believe in this kind of stuff should be free. This kind of knowledge should be free. And so we are building this together on stream, and I am closing the loop right now on a pretty massive refactor of a lot of our renderer, but also the way that we handle resources and assets has been completely overhauled. And so the way that we load our shaders, all the metadata that goes along with that, so the way we load our textures, meshes, everything has completely been ripped out and redone. And so we are debugging all of the issues that have come up with that. Before we actually were doing this refactor, we were kind of, it looked a little bit like this, right? So we're trying to get back to this point. These screenshots are actually a little bit old. I've added some stuff since then. But just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at, we have a basic PBR pipeline set up with cascading shadow maps. We do have a water plane in there. You're kind of seeing some previews of that here, although it's not working 100% as intended, just because we've got some issues to figure out. We have the ability to, manipulate objects in the world. We've created our own custom gizmo to be able to, scale, rotate, and move objects around, things like that. We have a UI system that we've set up as well, complete with text rendering rather. And so we have bitmap fonts, which is what this font is down here, and then we have what I call system fonts, which is using TTF fonts and dynamically generated font atlases to render this. That's basically, we're trying to get back to the point of a working engine, because once we close the loop on this refactor, we're actually going to jump into the development of the first game using this engine. And so I'm hoping to, I should have this refactor closed, I think, in another maybe week, is what I'm hoping for. Thank you for the project star. I appreciate that. Do you use free type library for font bitmap generation? So one of the few libraries that I use is the STB libraries. I use one to load images because I don't want to write a bunch of image decoders. And I use one to load TTFs, which is the STB true type library. And those are the only real libraries that we're using. Scratch that. There are two that I'm also using to load MP3s and Vorbis files, right? Because writing decoders like that just isn't necessary, right? But everything else we've written from scratch. And eventually we may also write some of those other things from scratch too. But the idea is that those are just used to import this stuff. So we have our own custom formats for textures and meshes and stuff like that. And so we use those to read source formats and translate them to our engine's format. And so they aren't actually included with the runtime. But yeah, to answer your question, we don't use free type. We use STB true type, and then we basically keep a list of code points that are included or that are currently loaded or have a glyph represented in that atlas for our system fonts. And anytime we update a string, we say, hey, check the code points in this, make sure we have them all. If we don't, add the ones that we don't have. And then, we just use that to render it from there forward. So that's basically the way that works. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that is just completely wrong in foobar with this. So our shadow maps are just not right. You can actually see them here being used completely improperly. So I'd like to figure that one out. That's a bit of a peculiar one because actually I guess I could just go, you know what, let me just launch it from here again. It's a little difficult to show without having the actual application like live running. So I'll go ahead and load up the scene. And then what we have is some really weird artifacts, right, with our shadow map. So I think what's happening is this is just not being sampled correctly. So our shadow map is basically a single array texture that has one array or one texture layer essentially per cascade. We have 4 cascades. So I think just our cascade data isn't making it to the shader correctly, and then also it's not being sampled correctly as we can see here. Because if we take a look at this, like our directional light is kind of coming from this direction over here, and if you look at this shadow map, you can kind of see how that lines up. So I'm going to do a little bit of looking. We found some issues. We found some issues that we've already fixed, and I've just got to find the rest of them essentially, and that's what we're doing. We're just working our way through all the problems in our code base. All right, so I am wondering if we're doing something stupid, like one of these memory copies is just bad. So this is, we actually found one of those a second ago. This was actually the wrong type, so we've actually fixed that. Shadow cascades, that's 4. So we have format 4 is there, so that should be four of those. Yep, that's 4 of those. Okay, projection, views, view positions. Again, max view should be 4. Cascade splits. I wonder if I'm still doing something stupid with this, because this used to be a vector 4. And I converted it to an array of F32s, that way in case I ever want more splits. Right now it's hard-coded with a limit at 4, but if I ever wanted more splits, I could have them. I wonder if we're doing something here when we're generating our cascade splits. So we have our splits here. Where do we actually... Are we actually passing that over anywhere? We might not be. Or if we are, we might not be doing it correctly. Okay, so I wonder, let's see, render mode set. This is another thing that's not working we have to figure out. I don't see where we're actually passing over the cascade splits though. So I'm actually wondering if that could be the problem. Because I don't see it. Split distance. Here's where we're calculating our shadow cascade data. Here we go. So this has got to be what's setting it. So I wonder if this is just doing its job or not. Cascade data sets. Oh, wait a minute. That's... I wonder if this is just not working correctly. So we have the individual splits. No, it's right here. We're not hitting any errors, so I know it's not that. Are we doing this though? Cascade data set. Whoops. Cascade data set. Right there. So this is doing the thing as well. I wonder why the splits aren't coming through as they should be. We should probably get rid of this for loop too and just set it all in one go. Let me kill RenderDoc. And we'll do I want to set breakpoints right here. I want to see what this is doing. So, yeah, I think this is going to be one of those things that's like, I probably just moved some code incorrectly somewhere, and now it's just not doing what it should be doing. Because it was working prior to the refactor, so. Okay, so splits, let's just take a look at what's in this. So it's essentially 0 to 1, so that actually looks fine. Okay, so our cascade index is 0. That's actually not the one I'm worried about. Cascade splits. I just want to see that this actually gets set all the way through. So that looks like what we had before the refactor. That also looks correct. Okay, so those are essentially distances that we use to determine which cascade shadow map cascade we use to render. Okay, so those actually look good. So we're setting them here correctly. So where are we when we go to send those off? Cascade splits. I wonder if that maybe is not correct. And if that's correct, it might be the material system foobarring it. So now the frame data has it. Okay. Let's send off the frame data too. This is standard, right? Oh. This does all of them, right? So render scene. Okay. So we have our views. Cascade splits. Those all seem correct as well. Yep, okay. Shadow bias. So all of this data here is correct. So then when we go to assign this to the actual uniform, let's see, the uniform frequency is per frame. So let's see, the size is 684. So it's saying this is 684. Why, when it gets sent over, is it saying that it's getting much less than that? So we copy 684. Let me double check and make sure that that's actually the correct size. I'm pretty sure it is. $684. Okay. So that makes me wonder if maybe, oh, you know what? Let me look at, so we have irradiance textures. Okay. I'm going to skip over those for right now. Oh, shoot. I wanted to actually step into this one. Okay. All right, so when we fire this off to the descriptor set, I'm wondering if maybe what we're doing here, because this has changed. Render frame number. So that's already been updated this frame, so it doesn't get updated again. That makes sense. Okay. Skip past this. These are just the textures. I'm pretty sure that those are binding correctly now. So how many updates, actually, how many descriptor writes do we wind up having? 0 in this case. So I wonder if when we write it the first time, if we are somehow screwing that up. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I apologize if I'm not like immediately responsive. deep in debugging mode tonight. Let's see. Got some YouTube messages to catch up on as well. Twitch chat broke again for me. That doesn't surprise me. Twitch chat breaks all the time. From like, that's awesome. In 8 days, you're a 2-year supporter. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the support there. Thank you very much for that. Means a lot to me. Yeah, that's awesome. From like, I'm really happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that you're doing so well with that too. So yeah, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the support, and thank you for being here for so long. I really appreciate that. Okay. Are we? We got rid of that one. Let me take a look at the individual, because this is also a little bit weird to me. When we go to apply, the instance level, or the material level data, rather, we're getting supposedly the same amount of data passed in for that as is passed in at the frame level, which is wrong. Geometry, let's see. Okay, so we do that. So here's where we loop each geometry. For each geometry, we pass all of the material level data right there. I suppose I should probably look at the render doc. I should probably look at render doc again to make sure that we got rid of all those duplicated calls that were happening too. Let me actually do that. That was one thing I meant to look at before we hopped back into debugging mode. Boy, my GPU is just not having it tonight for some reason. It's fine before I was streaming, but apparently streaming is, it's just not happy. Okay, take a capture. Can you use VS for hosting a site? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm not sure what you mean when you say hosting a site. Like locally or... Okay, so let's take a look at this draw here. So that's that car, right? And before, we were switching back and forth strangely between shaders here. And it looks like we're still... Oh. We are still doing some sort of weird... What is going on here? Okay, so we bind our standard material shader. We bind our frame level descriptor set. Then we're still switching to the water shader. Why are we doing that? And then we're binding the frame for every... Wait, is it only... Maybe it's only that first one. Hello, render doc. What are you doing? Hello. Okay, it's apparently going to crash on me. I'm not sure why it's crashed. Render doc is just like not. Is it even going to let me close it? This is going to make me reboot, isn't it? But why? Let me see if I can kill it in the terminal. Maybe. There it goes. Okay. I guess let's try that again. Take a capture. Close the application. Yeah, test kill time. Yep, exactly. H-top for the win. I could always transfer the project to UE5. No, thank you. No, I'm doing this specifically to avoid that. These issues aren't having to do anything with that. I think it's just render doc being a bananas tonight. All right. So I wanted to look at this because I want to get an idea of what all it's calling here, because I have a feeling this is part of the problem. Okay, so it sets. Is this for every draw call though? Or is it only? It's only that first one. Okay. That's probably because this. Okay, so these things happened leading up to the first draw call. So we set the per frame data for the standard material shader, the per frame data for the water material shader, which doesn't have anything to do with this draw call, but it kind of leads up to it. So that actually does make sense. And then we go ahead and we bind the per group standard material shader. And we also do push constants, which is the per draw data. So actually that looks correct. So the abridged version of that would be on the next draw call, where it just has to do the per group and then the push constants right there. Okay. Just thinking if there's anything, I think that all makes sense. So that doesn't really specify why the data that we're getting is just wrong. So I guess we need to look at the resource inspector, or whoops, pipeline state rather. Okay, so we do have the shadow map loaded there. We do have an array of 4 of those. So if we take a look at that and we take a look at the slices of what's bound there, that all looks good. There's our cube map for our skybox. Here's our material textures. Those look correct. So I don't see anything here that looks wrong. It all just seems to be the UBO.
That seems to be just wrong. Which is a little bit bizarre because it looked correct on the code side. These all look correct. Oh, you know what? Let me check. Oh, I just had a thought. Let me look what these look like in the vertex shader. These are the same. No, they're not actually. Y is inverted. So that's actually correct. Okay, I think that's actually correct. What's weird is this view positions here. I think these two are actually the correct ones, not this. This is our splits. This is that data that we looked at before. This is our cascade splits. So why is that where view positions is? Is our stuff out of order? I'm actually thinking it might be now. So let me take a look at well, I guess let's make sure it's right in the fragment shader, and then I'll copy this stuff over to the vertex shader. Okay. So this is the per group structure that we have. And I think I already see some stuff that might be wrong. In the material shader, this is the uniform data that should match up to that. Wait a minute, that's the frame data. Wait a minute, were we looking at the frame data or were we looking at we should probably look at both. Yeah, we're looking at the frame. Okay, so we were looking at this actually. This compared to this, right? So they should be the same. Views, view positions. Son of a... That was the wrong freaking size. Okay. Which means it's probably also wrong in this one. No, it's actually correct in this one. How did I manage that? Shadow bias is next. Render mode. Use PCF. Delta time. Okay. So that's actually all correct. Okay, so these are correct. What about the per group stuff? I might as well verify that too. So here's the directional light data. Here's the... I knew it was a data issue somewhere. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. You remind me of Steve Wozniak. Is it the beard? UE5 user speaking, do yourself a favor and don't use commercial engines. They're all trash. Yeah, I don't use them for a reason. I like having control over everything. Yes, sometimes that bites me, but eventually I do figure it out. Change view positions to float. Did I change the wrong thing? Like a dummy. Wait, no. Oh, wait. No, this should be... That should be that. What did I... Am I just confusing myself here? No, that was correct. You're right. I changed the wrong thing. I was looking at this line thinking it was this. So it should be directional light spaces, projection, views, view positions. You know what? It doesn't know what an F32 is, right? So I'll have to change that, but right? And then this is just a uint. Okay, so that was correct. This is in the fragment shader. Wait a minute. So we have... I don't see any alignment issues with this either. It should be squared off nicely, I think. So this same thing. Make sure I'm updating the right one too. Okay, so this. Yeah, it's the same. Am I missing something with the alignment of this stuff? Right, because like, that's 16 bytes, that's another 16 bytes, that's another 16 bytes. I don't see why. I'm not understanding why this is happening. So my view positions, the first view position is actually my cascade split, which makes absolutely no sense. Dingus-oriented programming right there? Yeah, for sure. You know how we do it here. Dingus-oriented programming live. It's not even about control basic stuff. Most people use are full of bugs. They gotta be too big to be useful to anyone. It's only marketing at this point. Yeah, that's true. What's the size of your UBO considering the arrays? What was it? 684 when I did a size of, which is weird because it's saying it needs 736 bytes. 704 provided, right? But if I collapse these guys, right, and I look at the offset of padding, for example, 728, that has changed. Earlier, that did not say that. Okay, so 256 is where projection begins, which is this guy. That's what I would expect, right? That's 256. Views. What is it, just locked up now? What is it doing? $320. Right, so am I going to have to bust out a calculator? So 256 plus 64. Yeah, that would be 320. So that's correct. And then views is an array of 4, right? So that's going to be another 256. Yeah, I'm going to... Right? So this one was saying what? This one's saying 320, which I think that's correct. So 320 plus 256 is 576, which is where this should start. But this says 640. Huh? Oh, wait. It's not 256, you dingus. Those are vector 4s. But this position is wrong anyways. 576. Oh, wait, no, that is correct. So why is this should be all the way down here? This is my shadow bias. This one of these is use PCF and one of these is render mode. This might be game time. I'm not 100% sure. Let me take a new capture and I'll wait like 10 seconds before I capture it. Calculator. Yep, exactly. All right, let me capture this now. This is going to wind up being a really stupid problem. I can guarantee it. Everything moved down. It's like everything... Well, no, everything moved up, which is what's really weird, right? So, let's see if I take this one, go here. First draw call. Pipeline states, fragment shader, and then we take a look at this guy. Yeah, see, that's like 18 seconds now, so that is game time. Yeah, so it's like the... It's like the views... Like these two should be here and here. And then this should be here. And then all this stuff should be bumped down. Or up, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, I guess it's yeah, it's up or down depending on how you look at it. I guess up in bytes, right? But like, what's strange to me is why is this jammed in right there? That's not making sense to me. Because we have views and then view positions right at the end of it, right? We have here views and then view positions. Wait a minute, look at these byte offsets though. No, those seem correct actually. What? I think my dingus brain is just not comprehending what is going on here. So these look correct. These are correct. So why would it be wrong from view positions forward? Is it possible that there's some sort of alignment thing happening that I'm not aware of? The data is just messed, like it's not even all messed up in one direction. That's the problem. It's just like completely wrong. It's like scattered almost. Right? Even if, I mean, I could go into another draw call here, right? Here, let's go into another one. So this is the one we were looking at. This is another one, right? We still have the same thing bound, essentially. This isn't changing from call to call, which it shouldn't be. Okay. Let me, I guess, check. So we're building out the shader configuration here for the default material shader, right? So essentially what we're doing here is we're creating an asset, serializing it, and then tossing it off to the resource handler saying, here, use this shader source to actually do the thing, right? That way we can control it in code and not have to worry about making sure the file is synced with the code. So we have our material frame UBO, right? And that is just the size of material standard frame uniform data, right? So that is this guy. So that is correct. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Sikelis Music, how's it going? Good to see you. HLSL has specific alignment requirements. Vulkan must have something similar. It does, for sure. Looks like two independent issues. I think so. You have the wrong offset with the shadow bias offset stuff. There's something missing. And then you wrote cascade splits into the view position stuff. Yeah, so I'm just thinking it's just wrong somewhere. So that means the engine says data uses more bytes. Yeah, and that's what's really confusing to me, right? Yes, I'm breaking my engine again. Exactly. Let's see. If it was an alignment issue, wouldn't the following floats belong to shadow bias, set, etc., because the other stuff would be offset by the wrong amount as well? No. Yes, I would think so. In that case, you're missing data which is not written. Yeah. RenderDoc gives me PTSD. Yeah, I understand that too. But yeah, like literally when we're setting up the uniform, right? When we're setting up the shader, everything is jammed into a single uniform, right? So it's this guy, right? It's one giant thing. And we're saying that's the size of this structure, which is this. So this guy should line up with this guy. And as far as I can see, it does. I'm just checking it again real quick just to make sure I didn't miss something, but like I don't see anything here that seems wrong. Right? And then the next thing is our texture bindings and our sampler bindings. And then we have the group level UBO, and then we have texture bindings and sampler bindings. And then we have the per draw stuff, which this is fine. And I'm actually convinced even this is fine. It seems to be the issue is within the global level stuff, is where most of the problems seem to exist. And I don't think it's my attributes either. I'll just double check that real quick, but I don't think it's that. No. Okay. I mean, that stuff hasn't changed in forever. Okay. So like I don't see anything here that just looks off to me. This doesn't look off to me either. And in fact, if I go into kill render doc again, because if I don't, my GPU doesn't like it for some reason. Okay. So if I run this, load all this stuff up. All right, kill the breakpoints. just for a second, just so we can make sure this stuff is actually drawing correctly. And how many of them did I have? All right. Okay. So it seems to be kind of doing the thing, right? But if I come in here, let's see. So let's look at the global level stuff, which is going to be right here. All right. And I'm just going to maximize this for a second. If we take a look at material frame data, which is what we're passing, actually, we should probably just go into, we should step into this actually. Because where we actually write it to the uniform is right here. All right, so we'll go ahead and skip to that. All right, so here's the frame UBO, right? So this is set up here, and this is everything that's in it, right? So if we take a look at this, all the data here looks correct, right? So we have delta time, our game time is here, use PCF is 1, that's actually correct. Render mode is 0, that's correct. Shadow bias is correct. View positions, let's see what's in here. Yep, so this is correct as well. It's inverted on the y-axis, right? So that is also correct. Views in here, right? We've got that one, and then we've got that one, and then the next two should be all 0. Oops, right? All zeros, right? So those are correct. So what I'm really not understanding is how we're getting from this to what's happening in the shader. Because if I even do a size of, and this is the interesting part, if I take this structure right here and I go into the debug console and I say size of this, 684 is what the answer is, right? And RenderDoc is telling us it needs like 736 or something like that. So I'm really not sure where it's getting that either. And I'm thinking this has got to be some sort of alignment issue. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think I know where part of that comes from. 684, let's see. I need to step into the renderer for a second. So renderer context, device, properties. Let's see, it was, what was the alignment? Shoot. That's push constant alignment. I know the device has specific UBO alignment. Here it is. This. What is the value of this? 64. Okay. So I know that one thing that we do is we align our UBO to that. And the other thing that we also do is when we go ahead and allocate space in the uniform buffer, the giant buffer that we have, we also align that entire amount to that. And we do that with get aligned. There it is. We do that with the UBO stride, right? So we can actually get. I think we actually save this off because that's where we do that right here, right? So we actually save that off. So if we go back to here, the internal shader, we need to go into that one. And we take a look at the per frame info. UBO stride is 704 bytes, which I think is what RenderDoc was telling us it requires, right? So basically what should be happening is we should write our UBO to the first 684 bytes of that. And yes, we have the rest of those bytes there that are just empty, but there's nothing we can do about that because the next aligned or available structure is available at 704. So that's the way that it should be working. I think that's the way that it is working. Unless I got that wrong, but I don't think I've changed that. Isn't it a GLSL layout STD 140, STD 430 issue? You know? Maybe. I am using 450. Across the board. Maybe a good night's sleep and a distraction will help you find the answer. That's possible. Yeah. We've already like solved so much stuff today. It's kind of crazy anyways. So we've already made really good progress on that. I'm just looking through these structures to make sure that there's nothing in here that's foobar, but like these things haven't changed. This hasn't changed. I guess, let me look in the... when we're compiling this to see if there's any... Yeah, we're using Vulkan 1.3. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Let's see, is Kohi's editor UI attached to the engine or part of it? So the way that we're going to do this is we're building the core runtime first, and then we have plugins that kind of go around that. So the UI system itself is actually a plugin. It's optional. It's not part of the runtime. And we already have that stood up. It's not complete yet, but we have a couple of different control types in there. And what the editor is going to be is the editor is going to be like a standalone application that operates just as like a game would, for example. It's just a different type of application that uses the core runtime to run, but then loads its own type of plugins and has its own type of configuration that it uses. So the advantage to doing that is that you don't have all of the editor code in your runtime code. You don't ship that. You only ship the runtime code, which is lean. And so, yeah, that's kind of the way we split that up. Let's see. Oh, Precurus, I just saw this. You subscribed for 2 months with Prime. Thank you very much for that support. I appreciate that. Happy New Year to you, Sikelos Music, as well. I've been kind of like deep level debugging tonight, so I haven't picked up on every chat message that's gone by. Actually, I think I might have picked up. What's on your set 1 buffer? Oh, okay. You were asking. Let me start up RenderDoc again. There's some sort of annoying GPU issue that I'm running into as well that I may wind up actually having to stream on Windows next time because of it. Basically, what it's causing is I can't have RenderDoc open and debug at the same time because my GPU just poops itself if I do that. It's really, really annoying. And then every once in a while, RenderDoc just crashes too, which is awesome. So I'll have to see what the heck is going on with that. Froggy Slice, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Okay, why did this stop doing the thing? Just not, okay. How about a clean all, a total refresh of shaders in the engine? Yeah, I mean, well, the shaders get rebuilt every time we launch the engine, right? I suppose I could do a clean rebuild. I don't know that that's going to help, but like, I could try. I've already done that a couple of times today, though, so I don't think that's it, but... Wow, that is really not wanting to... I'm going to have to kill it, I guess. All right, let's try that again. All right, so load that up, capture. Tammin was asking what's on the set 1 buffer. It's a solid point. Maybe try specifying layout STD140 on the UBO. I could try that. Okay. First, so Tammin, you wanted to see what was in here. So this is interesting because what is in here actually looks mostly correct. So we have our directional light in here, our shadow distance, our shadow fade distance, shadow split multiplier, right? All of those things are correct. Here's our individual lights that we have, our point lights rather. So these look, well, we only have one in the scene right now. Our flags are correct. Our texture flags are correct. I know those things are correct because they're showing up correctly in the scene. And then these are, so all of these guys here, these are all numeric values that can go alongside the maps for these things. So for base color, emissive, normal, metallic, MRA, roughness, you can specify a map to go along with this. And if the map exists, it uses that. Otherwise, it uses this value if it's provided. And all of that logic seems to be working just fine. That's based off of what it uses is based off those texture flags and so forth. This we're not really using. AO is also included in the same categories. This stuff, this is not used yet. This is not used yet. This is only used if you are doing specific metallic roughness or AO textures. And then obviously this is not used. So like all of what's in here looks correct to me. And what's interesting is this says it needs 656 bytes, but 704 is provided. But this one is saying 736 bytes needed, 704 provided. So I don't really understand why. I keep thinking that maybe I've done like a bad copy pasta somewhere, but I don't know. Let's see. I just want to have a look at something real quick, because I did have I could try. I guess I'd have to do this for both, right? So I'd have to do let's see, this is the, I'd have to do you're saying I should try 140? Right, I could try it there and then here. And I suppose I could just take a new capture. Did you hear about slang, by the way? Sounds promising. I have not. Finally, key render doc, right? All the time. All the time. Okay. So let's check this guy. Let's see what's in. Yeah, I'm not confident that changed anything. Nope. Nope. Still foobar. So it's not that. Is the compiler optimizing the alignment? I'm beginning to think so. That's the only thing I can think of. It's the only thing I can think of. It's got to be something like that. Like either the compiler is optimizing it, or well, no though, because I have optimizations turned off for debug builds, so it shouldn't be that. And I'm doing a debug build now, so it shouldn't actually be that. Something is reordering them, though. I just haven't quite been able to put my finger on what. Because this is obviously... And what's really weird is this structure is fine. It's just this one that's foobar. And it's correct up until we hit this. And then for some reason, it's just completely bass-ackwards from there. Well, it's not even backwards. It's just all over the place. Slang shader language is the Chronos-backed shader language to rule them all. Basically, what most engines implement for themselves, it has reflection. Ooh, that sounds good too. I mean, I know SpurV has reflection. I'm not utilizing it yet. I should, but one of these days. That does sound awesome, though. But the question is, like, will everybody adopt it? Is the real question. I don't know. We'll see. The one that I think that probably will poo-poo that the most, obviously, is Apple. My plan for this eventually is to write my own shading language that's proprietary to this, that kind of melds GLSL and HLSL together and then translates to whatever it needs under the hood. Very similar to HLSL as far as I know. No need to learn something from scratch. Nice. I'll have to look it up, because that does sound pretty awesome. Audio Tour 03, how's it going? Hello. Oh, wait a minute. Why is the color channel values way above 1? So that's a bit of a hack that I put in. That's because you're talking about this. Talking about these guys. That's because in PBR, PBR is like light energy based and energy conservation based, right? So your typical RGB is not going to necessarily make sense. I put a hack in here to basically turn this into the amount of energy that is used instead of just a straight color. This is not a long-term solution. This is short-term. What I basically need to do is put a multiplier in to basically say how intense the light is and then multiply an RGB color against that, but I'm just not doing that at the moment. Attribute packed padding inside struct. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's the weird thing is I think it's I feel like it's not on the code side, right? Because like even when I debug it and I look at it, it's correct. All the code on this side is correct. So like when I go in here to where is it? When I go in here to this, right? And I've actually gone through this with a calculator to see how big this is, and I like do a size of on this as it's running. It's correct. And all of the data here is correct when I debug it. So I don't think it's a compiler issue. Like I don't think me adding packed to this is necessarily going to fix the issue. I think it's whatever is happening between there and it getting to the GPU is just wrong. And I'll be dipped if I know what it is off the top of my head. So it's probably going to be one of those things that I'm just going to have to keep playing with until I actually figure out what it is. Because like this one is fine, for example. It's this one that's the problem. So I'm actually wondering, like, maybe do I need to... Because this gets put into here. I'm wondering if I need to reorder these, maybe? I mean, I suppose I could try that. Like maybe it has to be ordered this way for some reason. Right, and so I'll need to do that there, and then we'll do the, let's see, what did I have open? The fragment, so I need the vertex shader. Right, and I'll have to do it here. Right, so like maybe that needs to be that way, and then I just need to like reorder these things, maybe. I wonder if it's maybe something stupid like I have to do like a vec4 down here, right, to make it square, for lack of a better term, right? Because the base size of this, right, is a mat4, right? So we have mat4s here, right, which is 64 bytes, and then we have 16 here, and then we have another 16 here, and another 16 here. So maybe I need a fourth 16 here. It seems stupid to have to do that, but I've seen things make less sense. Did you debug the view position values on the C side while running? Yes, I did. Yep. And that's what I was saying, like everything in that struct was correct when I debug it on the C side. Oh. Oh, well, that's a neat trick. So now that stuff is not rendering at all. Okay, now I definitely think it's an alignment issue. Looks totally fine. Yeah, it's fine. This is fine. I mean, we even have we got the old dumpster fire emote there. It's fine. This is fine. Okay, so why then? Why on earth would that break it? Because if anything, that should have improved the situation there, not made it worse. All right, so let me kill this. And what we can do is in here, right before we apply it, which actually I think is all the way down here at the bottom. Right, so this is where we set the whole thing at once, right? So right here, I'll put a breakpoint. And you know what? I'm actually going to let me disable this for a second. Let it run for a few frames, let everything load. And then put it back. Okay, so let's see. Oh shoot, that's the group UBL. That's not the one I want. My bad. Meant the wrong place. Frame UBO is the one I'm looking at. This one. I don't know why I wrote N there. That should be UBO. All right. So here is a, well, actually, I could just pull up here. Frame UBO, right? So directional light spaces. Data in there looks good, right? Here's index 1. That looks fine. 2 should be all zeros. Oh, it's not, though. Why is it not? Oh, I'm looking at directional light spaces. Never mind. Ignore me. That is correct. Yeah, these should be filled out. The ones that shouldn't be filled out is the views, right? So 0 and 1 should be filled out. right? Those look fine. 2 should be all zeros. And 3 should be all zeros, right? And they are. Projection looks fine. Cascade splits, again, looks fine. These are the values I actually expect to see. View positions, correct. Correct. The Y is inverted. So this is what I'm expecting to see over on the shader side. Right? And then there's, no more in there. And then if we look, we have use PCF is set correctly, delta time, game time is set correctly. So like as far as this is concerned, on the C side, everything is correct. On the C side. So that doesn't seem to be where the problem is. Orshi, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Giga Chad spotted. Who are you looking at? Not me. Let's see. Yeah, so let me, I'm going to open up RenderDoc again. Right, and now I'll take another capture of this foobar version. And we'll see what happened. I'm actually beginning to wonder if this is fallout from the other shaders not working correctly too, because we have problems with some of the other shaders that we have to figure out as well. But all right, so here is the UBO data. Now let's look at the ways that is foobar. So these still look correct. Yeah, and this is now wrong. And once again, now this actually has an index of like foobar data. Like this data is all wrong up here. This doesn't make any sense. These two are what I expect there. This is garbage. And this is also garbage. Right? These two are supposed to be here and here. And then this is supposed to be here. Right? And then this and this are supposed to be here and here. Which means this is probably used PCF. Which is not even coming through at all. That should be 1. And then render mode and shadow bias, I don't even know where they are. Unless this is maybe shadow bias, which happens to be a number that's very similar to that. So it's like even moving the alignment of this stuff around doesn't seem to be helping all that much. What is this Giga debugger? Yeah, I know. It's RenderDoc, but yeah, it's we've had some issues with it tonight actually, in terms of stability. And the interesting part is like all of this stuff worked just fine before the refactor. So I'm really not sure like what changed. Although one thing that we did have different, now that you think about it, is we used to have different uniform locations per each one of these fields in the old system. And the new system doesn't do that anymore. It just basically jams this whole thing over as a single structure of data, which is better anyways in the way we should have done it to begin with. But I would expect the old way to break and this way to actually work, but it's quite the opposite. So like if I change this back, right, and I change it back, whoops. Let me reopen this, I guess. Okay, if I change that back, right, and I change this back, and I change this back, and build. Then I'll get something that looks better, but is still probably not right. Right, so I can capture. STD140 would add 12-byte padding in float as it is after mat4. Maybe that is what it's doing. Oh, you know what? I think I know what's happening. I think I know it. I think you're onto something there. I think I know what's happening. But let's look at this anyways. So drill down. Okay, so these are correct now. But these are going to be wrong. I think I shouldn't have to do this, but let's see, how do I want to do this? I wonder actually what would happen if I change this back to a vec4. Right? Well, actually, I don't need to do that here. I need to do that in over here. I'm thinking the problem is actually what Sad1 is saying, that there's padding being added in the float. Like after, well, I guess it would it be after this or before it? Because these are mat4s, right? Like maybe it's expecting me to do something like obviously I'm not going to leave it this way, right? But right? And then this becomes, 64 bytes to align with what the 64-byte thing is here, right? Like maybe it's expecting me to do something like that. I can't imagine that it would actually make me do that though. But I'm wondering if it is something really stupid just like that. Right, where I actually need to space these out like that. And if that's the case, that's really stupid. I can't believe that it would do that. But it's the only thing I can think of that's got to be happening. I mean, I could get rid of this, right? I didn't have that in there before. Sinocron, how's it going? It's going okay. Just deep into debugging stuff, and I actually just realized what time it is. So I actually have to end the stream tonight because I do have to get up and go to work in the morning. You would have to tell C not to add padding because that's the case. If that's the case. Right, exactly. I would have to do the same thing over here. But the thing is I have optimizations turned off, so this structure isn't getting padded at all on this side. And so I shouldn't. I'm just thinking it's gonna be. I'm gonna have to rework how this is done, I think, because I think it's probably expecting me to do something a little bit different with those. It's the only thing I can think of. So, I'm not gonna have time to do that tonight. So we're gonna have to pick this up tomorrow. But we did accomplish a lot of stuff tonight, which is good. Don't think padding and optimizations have something in common. Yes, but I don't think I'm... Yeah, you're right. Why was I thinking that? I think my brain's tired is what it is. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with padding a little bit, probably off camera, and we'll come back to this tomorrow, and when I figure out what it is, we will address it then. But I'm still thinking it definitely has something to do with that. Anyway, let me find somebody to raid, because I do have to end tonight. Like I said, I do have work in the morning. Let's see who's on. Thank you guys all, by the way, for all the help. I appreciate it. You guys have given me some ideas of some things I can run with. Let's see. Let's go with... on DirectX 12, the minimum offset alignment for UBO is 256 bytes. Yeah, we are taking that into account as far as what the device requires. We are taking that into account, so it's definitely not that. Let's go with... Let's see, I don't see anything on here that's really related to what we're doing. So I think I'm going to raid somebody I haven't raided in a while. If I can get the Twitch interface to cooperate. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I know who I'm going to raid. I didn't realize he was on. Okay. We are going to raid Spiro. He's a good buddy of mine. He's another Giga Chad here on Twitch. And he is making a game that is utilizing C, and then he's using WASM, and he's using the web browser as his renderer, the DOM, the HTML DOM, which is really cool. So yeah, we're gonna raid his channel tonight, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one.